Today, we are covering the current state of the Flames all the way to the PWHL here on Locked On Flames.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me today. I do have a guest joining us today in just a moment here. His name is Jake Baskin, who is a play-by-play announcer who has a great love for the Flames and drops by with some knowledge on prospects as well as the latest in the PWHL. Have you ever dreamed of becoming an NHL GM and managing your own franchise? Well, now you can with Hockey Ultimate GM or Ultimate Hockey GM. It's completely free, and Locked On listeners get 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On NHL in the game store. To download the game, just visit hockeygm.app or look it up on your respective app store. Ultimate Hockey GM, start your dynasty today. Alrighty, let's jump right into this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. Today, I am joined by Jake Baskin, who does a little bit of everything. Your specialty is play-by-play, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a play-by-play announcer, but I think in a past life I was mostly known as the USA Hockey Twitter guy.
Okay, all right. So
uh,
you've done it all.
yeah, it's fun to be on here. I have a bunch of friends who do lockdown shows, but for a long time, the Flames have been my favorite Western Conference team. So
I'm happy to hear that, but I'm also very sorry that you have also had to endure this chaos, this mess that is this current, or really the entire reputation of the Flames. But speaking of play-by-play, we got to talk about Rick Ball. He obviously left Sportsnet and took a job in Chicago. And what do you make of that?
well, I've been a Rick Paul fan for a long time. I think he is the biggest model for my own play-by-play, especially after Jim Houston retired. I remember probably like 2016 or so, somebody I trust on broadcasting told me, "Listen to the new guy in Calgary. He's really good." And I listened and I'm blown right away. He calls the game like his presence on the game was so good. He always knew how to compose his voice. It really felt like Calgary had a national broadcast, and I think that's what I liked about everyone on Sportsnet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I really didn't think he'd leave. I know that there are a lot of good hockey announcers in Alberta, but Rick Ball had been on the playoffs. I think, it's tough to speculate or whatever, but I know he wasn't put on the playoff broadcast this year because the Flames weren't in the playoffs. That's probably
Mm-hmm.
a reason to think elsewhere. I know it happened a few years ago when Cuthbert came to Sportsnet that Dave Randorf was starting to look elsewhere and he found a job in Tampa. So Chicago felt they needed a change. I've met Chris Foster's, he's a good guy, but it's going to be tough in Calgary, knowing that in addition to Gaudreau and Monahan and all the players who are rumored to be leaving Lindholm, and whoever's a free agent this year, it's going to be tough hearing a new voice in the booth as well. And I think the Blackhawks fans know what just happened there. But man, it's going to be tough listening to the Flames games and not hearing them on. And I feel bad for the Flames fans. And well, good for Chicago. Your broadcast just
Yeah,
got a lot better.
yeah, it's definitely disappointing, but like I can't sit here and judge someone else and say that, oh, you made the wrong decision. Like that's not I don't know Rick Ball. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but it does stink because is a familiarity with that broadcast team, and it just, like you said, he is such a professional, and just the way he calls the games, um he's one of a kind, I would say. And with the recent exodus of Flames players, having that staple still there would be nice. But now it's a new era in Chicago, new faces showing up there, and here's another one. And they got a good one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm really gonna tune into a lot of Blackhawks games because I love listening to Rick Ball, and I was very happy to see the outpouring of support for Rick Ball from the Flames fans on Twitter when that happened.
Mhm.
I think everyone was kind of upset when he wasn't on the playoffs this year. TNT even used him for a game last season. And I think in Chicago, he's certainly going to get a bigger spotlight in the U.S. And I think everyone will realize how good he is. But obviously, with the Flames, it's about what they want to do next.
Yeah, and I think one of the purest moments, I would say, in the last year or so on Twitter would definitely be everyone coming together and kind of, putting snippets of their favorite Rick Ball calls, all the media members posting videos and pictures from their times together, and just he obviously didn't die, but it definitely felt like a little like memorial sort of thing. And I definitely agree with you. I think that that's one reason to watch the Blackhawks this year, and I just, good for the fans. They're getting someone that knows their stuff, and it's a production. It's not just a simple, okay, this is what's happening. It's truly it. You're able to understand and follow along a lot easier, I would say, than some broadcasts.
Yeah, I mean, as a play-by-play announcer, I've really, even though I'm from the United States, I've really enjoyed the Canadian style of broadcast that has come through Sportsnet and TSN over the course of my life, and I think there is a greater production value, obviously, but there's a greater presence of the broadcasters, and I think there's more control. It's not going over the top all the time like many of the announcers down here do.
Mhm.
It's really just an enjoyable listen, and it shows that there are many different ways to broadcast, and there are many different ways to show passion. I definitely got the sense that Ball loved the Flames, even though he had been a Canucks fan before that. Um, and I really felt that he gave an A-plus broadcast every time he was on the mic, especially after the health scare he had last year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's that was very scary, but I'm obviously glad he's all right, and still able to work, and obviously do big things.
yep. And I know he also had a career in Canadian football before that. But as a broadcaster myself, and as a fan of some teams in various sports that have had broadcasters move on or
Mhm.
retire or be fired, it's most of the time it's tough to get used to the new one. And I hope whoever it is for the Flames fans, um they accept that right away. Like this is, I think, no, like as someone who's in broadcasting, most broadcasters I found are friends with other broadcasters. I don't think they're really competing with others. In some
Mhm.
cases they are, but think in most cases, I think Ball certainly going to have an affinity for the Flames, and I think the Flames fans are going to have an affinity for Ball wherever he goes. And
Absolutely.
you just have to move on.
Yes, absolutely. And coming up next, we are going to evaluate some of these wonderful Calgary Flames prospects, as we have been doing through most of the season. And we will be right back after this. All right, Flames fans, I just want to take a quick second here and talk to you about Ultimate Hockey GM. Have you ever dreamed of becoming an NHL general manager and managing your own hockey franchise? Do you think that you could run the Flames better than any other general manager they might have had in past years? Well, your dream can come true. And this game is most definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the seasons, and lead it to glory. Hire the right coaches and staff, trade players or draft picks, and navigate through free agency and the draft, all in a challenging and realistic game world. As a Flames fan, you know there is no off season. General managers are constantly making moves at every point in the year to improve their team's chances, and that's why I think you are going to love this game. I'm looking forward to playing this game this weekend on my road trip, and I can't wait to run the Flames. It's going to be great. Ultimate Hockey GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. By the way, Locked On Network listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On NHL in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit hockeygm.app or look it up on the App Store. Hockey GM. Start your dynasty today. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your team every day. So how familiar are you with the Flames prospect group?
I'm certainly familiar with the American ones they have, Matt Coronato, Dustin
Mhm.
Wolf, Hunter Brstevich, and I try and watch what I can. I'm I'm an Islanders fan first and foremost, but I I I think the Flames have certainly been willing to draft Americans. I watched Arseny Sergeyev at UConn for a number of years, but he's transferring now. I think at least some of the big names I'm familiar with, and I know they're. I've watched a bunch of Connor Zary in the NHL this year. I I like what the Flames have, but now the prospects get more of a focus with the team having to turn over and possibly rebuild.
Yeah, there's definitely been a shift in priority, I would say, from when I first started covering this team 4.5 years ago almost. Um, from just re-signing those veteran anchor players and just having them take up a roster spot or not utilizing players to their fullest potential, Sam Bennett, and having to move on from them. But now it feels like there has been a philosophical change and they're willing to let the young guys play, make mistakes, and learn from them. It like I have a hard time calling them mistakes because these are 20-year-old guys playing with players who've been in the league half half their life. So it's like it's a learning curve, and I think it's so important for um, players like Dustin Wolf to get integrated properly into the NHL and not just, no pun intended, but thrown to the wolves.
Yeah, I mean, I think every team has to come to a decision at some point. When are you going to stop throwing roadblocks in front of people? And that is especially true for goalies.
Mhm.
Dustin Wolf has been possibly the best goalie outside of the NHL for the last 3 years. And it looks like this is the year where they're going to have to give him some games. But also, if you're used to being a starter at every other level and you
Mhm.
have Markstrom or Vladar in front of you, and I think Nashville's having the same thing with Skarov, you have to find out what the right level is, not to give too much right away, like Buffalo did with Devin Levi,
Mhm.
but making sure he's playing enough, he's getting enough reps, and he's happy enough. Um, because you can't keep a guy at that level in the AHL forever.
No, and I understand why people, you know, are both sidesing this
Mhm.
because it would be great for him to continue to get those AHL games in and to just see that consistency. However, if he's going to learn to like the work ethic that comes into being an NHL player, he's got to do it at some point. And he did a little bit this year, but it feels like next year or this upcoming season is when he's going to put the big boy pants on and really be a consistent member of the Calgary Flames.
Yep, and I'm rooting for him. I've liked Wolf since his draft year. I think he would have been the U.S.'s starter at the World Juniors most years. He just happened to have Spencer Knight in front of him.
Mhm.
Um, and I think they're big things. I think, everyone talks about his size, but if you're drafted and if you're in an organization, the AHL organization, like size may prevent you from getting picked, but once you're in the organization, you're going to be given just as much of a chance as anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Wolf first came up earlier in prior to the end of the season, where he took over for Vladar, um, he was often criticized about his size by Flames fans. Oh, he's too small to be an NHL starter. Have you looked at the team that's playing in front of him and looked at anything else? Because there's a lot of factors that go into these sorts of things. And he's going to be an exciting player to watch. And like you mentioned with Devin Levi, the Flames once again have a situation where they can look to and be like, "Oh, we can't do that. Look what happened there." And it's a good thing for them to have a frame of reference because I feel like sometimes, I mean, I don't know if they would get lost in like this idea of just throwing him and, okay, you're going to be the starter and all this and just kind of let it all play out, but like you can't romanticize being competitive if your players are not at that level.
Yep, and I think Coronato having split the season between the
Mhm.
AHL where he did great, and the NHL where he had some trouble early on, like as is expected. But he's scored goals at every level. I think you have to put him in the position to score goals. You can't put people in the lineup in front of him, especially given that the Flames are not expected to compete in the short term.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that he really, it's such a difference coming from college to the pros.
Yep.
He played at Harvard. He's not flying across international borders and playing, multiple times a week, at a high level, at the highest level. Um, and there's that work ethic and just that natural development that has to happen. And like, I guess you could call it like a second puberty, but like
Mhm.
mentally, because you are jumping into something and you're becoming a whole another version of yourself that you've put in the work to be.
Yeah. And he's still on the entry level contract. I I think the Flame staff, you spend a first round pick on him, you have to give him every chance
Yep.
to do well. But this is a guy with a track record of scoring goals and finding ways to score goals. And the Flames have done right by their young players before, so let's see them do it again.
Yeah, and I think that this is a really good time for Craig Conroy to come in and kind of um overhaul this because it is a transition period for a lot of their prospects too. And to have a coach and a general manager that are on the same page, um, after losing so many big players and prospects along the way and wasted draft picks, um, it's important to really integrate this talent properly and don't rush it, but also don't keep suppressing it. Like if Matt Coronado is going to get time on the power play, let that happen. it doesn't matter if it's, a veteran spot he's taking or something like that. Like, if he is capable of doing it, let him do it. This is the time to do anything and everything you can to get the most out of these guys.
Yeah, I know, one thing Flames and Western Canadian fans in general have thought about, and I'm sure many other small markets, is like, "Well, what if this guy's gonna leave in a few years?" Well, you can't worry about that. You have to take control of them while they're here now. If the guy's 20 years old, you're not gonna be UFA until you're 27. I wouldn't go worry about something that's gonna happen in 2030 about a guy leaving, so we can't
Right.
really put this him in and make him make his value go up to the point where he'd want to leave. That's just not how the sport works.
No. And I think people will obviously look at Gaudreau and Kachuk and just be like, "Well, what about them?" Yeah, that those were two huge, huge losses for this team, and, like, Johnny really thought he was gonna resign. He expected there to be a contract extension, brought to him the summer before, didn't happen, and Kachuk, I guess I would say he did the right thing and said, "I want I wanna go," and instead of losing 2 players for nothing, uh, it was very nice of Kachuk to do, you know,
Yeah,
get us
yeah,
strapped with, Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, so it's fine. Like, I'm not everything happens differently. It's not just because you're a US born player does not mean you're just immediately shipping back as soon as you hit free agency.
nope. Kachuk has dual citizenship, so uh, and he played in the OHL. I don't think it was about that.
No, I'm sure it was the factor of losing, Gaudreau and other things that were going on within the organization. But coming up next, we are going to take a turn and talk about the inaugural season for the PW Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find. All right. So the PWHL inaugural season just wrapped up. You mentioned you're an Islanders fan. So does that mean
Mhm.
you are also a PWHL New York fan?
Absolutely. I was there every game they played in Bridgeport. I was in attendance. I did go to a game on Long Island as well. I've been following this team, and I'm someone who's been a college women's hockey fan for years, but has not really followed the pro game as closely until this year.
Mhm.
And it was a lot of fun to be at, and I could use my college and Team USA knowledge to really get invested this year. I really found this season, despite everything, I feel really bad for the PHF fans. I know you have a background in that league. I went to
Yeah.
games. I went to Whale games. Uh, but I really felt invested getting in from on the ground floor this year, and it was a lot of fun to watch, even if the season for the New Yorkers, eh, not great.
I was looking back at my power ranking predictions, I guess, from the preseason, and it's funny. I had New York number one because I mean, on paper, that looked like a fantastic team, and I had Minnesota fourth because it just didn't feel like it felt the vibes were off.
Mhm.
Which I mean, we all know now. But they were clearly a strong enough roster to win the Walter Cup, and it's it was as hard as it was for PHF fans and people that were, you know, intertwined and working with the organizations. Um, this has been a big step up, I will say. And it's not a bad thing. You know, progress is progress, and it's great to see the best players in the world all playing together.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching women's hockey since about 2013 or so. Um, and it seems like with every new class, not only do the players get better, but the young players get better, the college ranks get better. It's really just been a lot of fun to watch, and I'd recommend to anyone who lives around women's hockey. You know, I'm in Connecticut, so I go to
Mhm.
Yale games or Quinnipiac games. Find what's local to you and go and support it. And I know Calgary, unfortunately, they were left out of the PWHL for distance reasons, but that city has a long history with women's hockey. I'd recommend go to your local game and support it, whatever league it is.
Yeah, and, you know, youth sports are obviously, their version of NCAA, and,
Mhm.
um, Calgary, they have a really solid women's program, and, um, it's been really exciting to watch this development and what happens when you invest in the infrastructure and the things that matter, and just the women's game in general. Do you have any standout players this year?
I mean, yeah, I think beyond just the players that everyone knows, I really liked looking at the rookie class.
Mhm.
The players who I had watched in college previously who got picked high or didn't get picked high and became impact players right away on the champion Minnesotans. You had Taylor Heisey and Grace Dunwinkle from the Gophers, stay home. Emma Malte in Toronto, Alina Mueller in Boston, um, Sophie Jakes. I really liked the crop coming out of college last year, and
Mhm.
with the draft just happening, Sarah Fillier going to New York, and then Kayla Barnes, Hannah Bilka, Danielle Serdachny. I think the future of the league is in good hands. I noticed. I know that some people were uh, thinking about like the veteran class, the pull hands, the knights, the coins, and what happens when they're gone. Well, they're not going anywhere, but when they do, I
Yeah.
think I think the future's in good hands, and you still have players in college like Abby Murphy and those players who I think the future of women's hockey is in great shape.
Absolutely, and I think, especially, you know, we're talking years, a few years down, the pipeline here, but that's still, you know, there's still girls and or young women in high school and college and really ramping up towards this. It's not just, "Oh, well, maybe I'll, you know, I'll find something to do." Like, there's an option, and I think that that's great, and you know, if you have an opportunity to go watch collegiate women's hockey, do it. It's a lot of fun. I live in upstate New York, and the women's hockey team for the college here, D3, but you know, they've won a few national championships, and it's just fun, and it's it. I don't know how to say it. Like, it's just nice to see that there is an outlet that
Y-
is this hopefully, I would believe, sustainable.
Yeah, no, I mean I've broadcast in Division 3, and I've done a number of games at Amherst College, Trinity College, uh, schools with good hockey programs, good rinks, and I've got to talk to the coaches, and even at that level, the quality of play is really high.
Yeah, exactly, and it's if you love hockey, men's hockey, chances are you're also gonna like the product on the ice for women's hockey. I think that it's been great watching, you know, them kind of cross over with, their men's teams, like, with the Bruins and the Boston PWHL Boston, I can't wait
Yeah,
until
yeah.
they have names.
Yeah,
But
no, it makes things a lot easier to say.
yeah, 'cause I'm like, yeah, Boston and Boston, but like the corresponding teams in each city um has been awesome. And I think that's another great way to grow the game and, grow the audience, and having games accessible on YouTube for free. Um, Absolute game changer, I would say. And I I was going to go down to Bridgeport um, for one of the last games that New York played there, but unfortunately I got super sick, so I wasn't able to
Mm.
go. But like, if you have the opportunity, the tickets are affordable. The merch probably only going to get better from here once we have names, logos, designs, and it's a great way to meet friends too. Like the women's hockey community, everyone is somehow connected, and it's just I don't want to call it a big happy family because but
Mhm.
there is that that real sense of community there, amongst all fan bases, not just your dedicated team. So the season just ended, the draft happened, but gearing up for next year, and
Yeah.
can't wait for that. Do you have any predictions for any of the names?
Ah, I know what they had some names trademarked. I know, like, the New York fans love the Pizza Rats. I kinda consider myself skeptical that that's actually going to happen. I don't think I have any predictions, um, but I'm sure they're gonna be well thought out and, fit in with the uniforms and hopefully the colors they already have. Some of those jerseys were great.
Yeah, I really liked a lot of the jerseys. Hopefully, we're gonna, you know, get more of a variation with more branding. But is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap up today's show?
Um, Going back to the Rick Ball story, in regards to what could happen next,
Mhm.
um, judging from what I've seen with Sportsnet in the past, they mostly will stay internal. So I'd wonder if someone like Hunter Ryan Singh, who lives in Calgary and does the West Coast Saturday night games for Sportsnet, I wonder if he might be a fit for Rick Ball's successor. I think he does a pretty good job, and he definitely has his own individual style that is something we haven't seen before.
Well, we will have to keep our eyes out because there are changes every day that we are seeing, from trade rumors to coaches leaving to coaches hiring and to broadcast turnover. So, thank you, Jake, so much for joining me here today. Where can my listeners find you?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Jake Baskin PXP. I'm sure I will have some broadcast updates for you in the next couple months. But in the fall, I'll be doing whatever sport I can find.
Perfect. So thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube, so you never miss an episode. And until next time, stay safe, stay warm, stay hydrated, and be kind.